Join us on the fearless pursuit of self-discovery and growth. This is Ivy Unleashed, a Gold Ivy production.
Welcome back. You are listening to Ivy Unleashed. We are so grateful, as always, that you are tuning in and joining us today.
Yes, I am so happy to be here.
Oh, it's been a minute.
It has, and it's funny because you think being in Hawaii, you would be like, I don't want to go home, I don't want to go home. But we had 8 days with 3 kids in Hawaii. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. It was everything. But it was a trip. It was a trip. There's a difference between a vacation and a trip. A trip is when you take children. A vacation is when you do not.
Yeah. I mean, after watching them for a week, I get it. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, but Hawaii is insane.
Oh,
I can't wait for you to
beautiful.
go. Yes, you're going to love it so much. It's so beautiful. And we came back with a little guest in our home.
Yeah, we have a special guest in the house. You'll see her walking around. You left and came back to have a dog now.
You know, I love having a dog in my house. This is Britt Williams, our guest on episode 19's dog Tilly. She's on vacation. And so coming back from any vacation, although it's beautiful, it's fun, it's insanely wonderful.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's hard to bounce back into your routine. And then now we have this dog, and Justin's like, you really agreed to have a dog when we got back from vacation. And she's great.
Yeah, it's a good test.
Yeah.
We're going to see if Gold Ivy needs a mascot.
And also, don't tell Justin, but she's like a hypoallergenic dog, and I think I'm allergic to her. I'm like itchy. I've sneezed.
No.
I was like trying to hide my sneezes yesterday because my husband does not want to get a dog. He just is like, can we just have a couple years of not potty training something and taking care of another thing? Because we have 3 kids. And so I'm constantly, all 3 of my kids and myself are constantly talking about how much we want a dog, and you. And I just think a dog makes a house a home.
Yeah.
And they felt like she's been my little shadow.
Yeah, but not if you're dying from it.
I know, don't tell him.
Well, he's going to hear.
He's going to hear, but
Oh,
whatever.
man.
I would suffer through any allergy to have a dog.
Yeah, well, I mean, even just without a dog, getting back from vacay, it's a lot. And then getting 3 little ones organized and ready for school, and when they're tired and exhausted. I think that's something that we can all relate on. We've all been there trying to bounce back, whether it's from vacation or being a new mom or health issues. We're going to talk about a topic today that is very pertinent because of the situation that you're in.
Yes.
Getting back to reality, how to bounce back, how to get back into your rhythm and find that flow state when you've been pushed off of it.
Yeah, we really want to dive into all different varieties of bouncing back. You know, there's bouncing back after a breakup, or there's bouncing back after having a baby, or there's bouncing back when you're really suffering with your mental health for whatever reason that may be. And so we've been through a lot of different scenarios ourselves, and we want to talk about our personal experience with those deep, dark moments and how to bounce back, like little tips, and then big, long stories about how we did it too.
Yeah. We're going to dive into the top 5 things you can do to help get back into your flow. Like Andrea said, we're going to talk about our own personal experience, what's worked for us in times of struggle, and then we'll also provide tools for you how to help bounce back when it comes to our 4 pillars of health. So this is sleep, nutrition, stress, and exercise.
And I coach, clients all ages, all different stages of life, and we both do. And something that I do is I always have this sheet that's by me when I'm coaching as these like I even coached someone yesterday, and she was just so overwhelmed. She's caretaking for her brother that has stage 4 cancer. And she's just the caretaker of her family. She's a stay-at-home mom, 3 kids, just has so much on her plate.
Lot, yeah.
Yeah, and any goal felt overwhelming to her. Anything felt overwhelming. And this happens a lot. Like whatever you're going through, like you're not alone in those times where you feel like I can't commit to anything more. I can't take anything else on. So I have this running list. I think it's like top 25 things you could do or you could pick from if you feel off, you feel like nothing's going right. And there are things like shower, get outside, gratitude list, listen to music, call a friend, like these little things where if you look at that list of 25, and we'll put this on the blog too, just pick one.
Yeah.
Anything that can kind of just give you that tiny boost and it doesn't feel overwhelming.
And they seem like very simple things because they are, but when you're in that moment of it's hard to even get out of bed, it's hard to even think about one more thing to do for myself, even though I know it's going to help me. We've been there. And so just to have a list to see in front of your face of, okay, if I just shower, it's going to make me feel better. What can I do? What's one thing out of 25 that doesn't seem so overwhelming that's going to help? And this list is things that have gotten us out of dark times. And that's something that we want to talk to you guys about today, that we've been there and we get it. And now more than ever with COVID and uncertainty of the world right now, it's really important to talk about. So I'm excited about this topic and just to kind of dive in. So I'm curious, when you think, Dre, about bouncing back, what comes to mind?
Oh, I honestly think about a breakup I had in college. It was a really dark time. I was in a really dark place and I felt like I couldn't get out of it. I think about bouncing back after vacations. I love going on vacations, but sometimes you get back and I think it's the exhaustion. You're so tired, even though it was wonderful.
It's like you need a vacation from the vacation.
Yeah. And I've started actually scheduling an extra day off or coming back, on a Saturday instead of Sunday, because it's just, you need that sleep to catch up on it. I think about bouncing back from injuries or like, time off from exercise, things like that to kind of get back into the routine. Like that's super hard to just start an exercise routine. I think of that. And I think about bouncing back from relationship issues too. Like, whether it's in your marriage or a friendship or a family member that you're struggling with, to bounce back after an argument or bounce back after a tough conversation where you messed up or they said something hurtful or whatever. I think of all of those things, but, I would say my biggest bouncing back moment, which I've learned is more of a process than anything, was after having Cora, who's my firstborn. Yeah. So this was 8 years ago and it feels like a lifetime ago, but it was only 8 years ago and I didn't know what baby blues were or postpartum depression was. I'd heard of postpartum depression, but I didn't really know what that meant. I had heard it was like, you want to hurt your baby, you need to call someone because you're going to hurt your child. And I never felt that way. But I had her. Things went well. Pregnancy went well. Birthing went well. All of that went well. She was healthy. And so it's like, you feel like, I should be so grateful. I should be so happy. And I was. I'd look at her sometimes and just like cry happy tears. But then I had these moments where I would just be so emotional and crying or feel so lonely. I felt really isolated and everything felt like a lot. Like if I got out the door with her, I felt like I ran a marathon. Like it was so hard, like to think about. Yeah. And it as an outsider, like before having kids or even like to think about it now, it feels like silly to think of a shower being overwhelming, but sometimes it is. Like to do that felt like a lot. And Justin would come home from work and be like, what'd you do today? And I'd be like,
kept a baby alive?
I don't even know. But I was doing something all day long, but like it looks the same as it looked when you got there. There's still dishes in the sink I'm not showered. It looks like it literally never moved, but the whole time I was doing something. And that played into my mental health because, you have this job that you're bringing in money or accomplishments from tasks at work and all of a sudden you're not working.
Well, your whole life has changed. Not only are you keeping yourself alive, you're keeping a child alive. You've never done this before. I think it speaks to you don't know how you're going to react in any situation until you are in that situation.
Right.
And then your hormones are flying. You have a completely new life.
And even the tips we're going to give today, it's like, I could have showered and that would have made me feel better. But in the moment, I'm so overwhelmed that even doing anything felt like so much. I felt like I had this heavy weight on me at all times. And, when after you have a baby, you go to the doctor and they do like a checkup on you, 8 to 12 weeks after. And they have you fill out this questionnaire of basically just seeing how you're doing emotionally. And I loved my midwife at the time. She was wonderful. And she, had me do the questionnaire and just chit chat and couldn't wait to talk about how awesome the birthing process went and whatever. But she didn't really check in on me the way that mentally? I needed. Yeah. And I know this now looking back. And then I had an appointment, a month or two later. And I said to her, I was really off. And she goes, I know. You didn't seem like yourself at all.
But didn't say anything?
She didn't say anything. And I really wish she would have said, how are you really doing? Or like paused and been like, how, like, are you, what's the sleep situation like? Like, how are you caring for yourself? Things like that, because I really needed that. Yeah. And I didn't realize till 5 months after I'd had Cora how low I was. Because when you're in it, you're trying to function, you're going to Christmas. People are so happy to meet your baby. You've got visitors, you've got people doing nice things for you, and you're going with it. Mm-hmm. But I just felt like I had nothing to offer any conversation. I felt like an alien. I honestly felt like my best friend Britt visited me during that time, and she left and I just sobbed because I felt like I wasn't myself. I didn't offer any
Well, then I feel like you're picking yourself apart and second guessing everything because you know that you're not you and that you feel off. But in the moment, you feel like there's nothing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the moment I realized how low I was and that I probably had baby blues was literally 5 months after I had Cora. I didn't realize how low I was until I think I was watching a movie with a friend and I laughed out loud. And it scared my body.
Like, oh, this is what it feels like?
Yeah. I felt like, oh my God, things are funny again. Because people would say funny jokes and I'd be like, I was like fake laughing at them. Nothing sparked joy. It was either postpartum depression, baby blues. I don't know. I wasn't diagnosed with anything. Yeah. But I think about bouncing back from that. And I think about like putting myself back in that place. It's really hard to be like, yeah, I should go for a walk.
Yeah.
I'll feel better. And so I think finding those things that for you don't overwhelm you.
What were those things for you? Looking back, what really helped you get back to a place where you felt like you?
Well, when I had a baby and I was in that spot, it was sleep. Mm-hmm. So getting a good chunk of sleep. And it's hard when you're breastfeeding. And at the time, like I wasn't quite doing bottles yet when I was really low. And so it was harder for Justin to help and give me that chunk of sleep. But that's what you need. Like I needed sleep. I needed alone time to recharge. And I'm an extrovert, so that's kind of weird. But I needed to like get away from my baby or my apartment, fresh air, just getting the mail helps. Like it's these tiny things. Showering for me was way too much. It felt really overwhelming. I would force myself to do it so I didn't stink. But like,
yeah.
Did
you pick little things each morning to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do for myself? Or
I should have, and I didn't.
Yeah.
I was so in what I was doing for her and just like trying to do the right thing, which was also a big part of my issue was that.
What is the right thing?
I never felt like I was doing enough. I never felt like, and so.
I'm sure a lot of moms can relate that are listening.
Yeah. And so what really helped me, what really got me through it was, sometimes people will be like, oh, just take it day by day. That was way too much for me. I needed to literally take it minute by minute. It wasn't even hour by hour. Like an hour overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
And so it was minute by minute. Like right now in this minute,
what am I doing?
I'm feeding her. In this next minute, I'm putting this here. In this next minute. And then eventually I got to be able to build it up. But it was finding what doesn't overwhelm you with your next move. And sometimes it's the minute. It's not just a day. A day sometimes is too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine, especially when you're feeling that low, but then you have to take care of another human.
Mm-hmm. Like, well, I will check on you, and people check on your friends, and it's not just when you have a baby. It's when someone isn't like laughing the way they normally laugh, or they're not engaging the way they normally engage, check on them. And sometimes, how you doing? Oh my gosh, she's so cute. Or how you doing?
Yeah.
I know that you haven't been feeling great.
Or, hey, you just had a child. Or I know that, life is really crazy right now. Mm-hmm. How are you? When someone says good, you say, how are you really doing? Mm-hmm. That's when you say that your midwife, you wish you would ask that. That's something that I think about every time I go to the doctor, right? And it wasn't until I explored outside of Western medicine and found alternative medicine and an acupuncturist, all these things that growing up I didn't even knew existed. And then to have someone who is in the medical field to say, well, mentally, how are you doing? Do you know that what you're eating and the way you're dealing with your emotions is affecting your stomach and this pain? And I'm like, what? There's a link? No.
Yeah.
It's very powerful, the question of how are you really doing? And I think it just needs to be, it's such an easy question.
And I think too, when I think about you and what you've experienced in your lows with your health, I think about how everybody can think of that person that, you know, judges you less or builds you up no matter what, or knows when you're low. And that's who I'm kind of talking to with that. Like, how are you really doing? Because I think it's hard when you're like a baby shower and there's a bunch of people around and you're kind of the extended relative. Like, you're not that person's not going to be like, oh,
open up.
Let me tell you about my baby blues right now.
Yeah.
I think when you think about bouncing back, or you know someone that needs your help with bouncing back, like, am I their person? Am I that close with them? I am. Okay. Let's help this person out. Let's really engage with them and say, you know, Brooke, I know that you've been struggling lately, and I don't know if this is the best time to talk about it, but I'm here for you. And I just want to know, how are you really doing?
Yeah. And even if you're not in this situation to ask how you're really doing, just simply saying, I'm here for you. Like, there's nothing that you can't tell me. I think just, even if I wasn't in the spot to want to talk about it, right? Because whenever we talk about our struggles, it's emotional, and then we have to get out of that funk and bounce back from that funk. And that's something that I struggle with, is like, it's easier to not talk about it sometimes. And just knowing that if I were to want to talk about it, that someone is there that isn't going to judge you is really powerful. So just putting that on the table. When I think about it the other way around, like, of course I'm here for you, right? But you need to tell people that. Like, we know that we would be there for someone, but a lot of times that other person doesn't want to be a burden. They don't want to talk about their struggles and bring you down with them. So just that simple comment of, I'm here. Just know
even
that.
a text too. You know, I think what comes to mind a lot too, when I think about this space and my age and gender, I think about people struggling with infertility and loss. And it's hard because when you know someone's trying, when is the right time to bring it up? Because you're like, oh, they're happy right now. I don't want to ruin this happy moment. So sometimes it is a text to say, I'm here anytime you need me.
Just, hey, been thinking about you. I think about the difference between living alone when you're struggling. Like, for me, that was really difficult. You know, you talk about being a new mom and you had Justin, and even with people around you, you felt alone. And when you actually are living alone, it's, how do I force myself to pull through? And a lot of times you have to rely on social support. You have to be consciously reminding yourself of these little things and to figure out what works for you. And I think one thing I wish I would have done sooner is developed this foundation of simple tools that I know that make me feel like me before I was ever in a low spot, because that was really hard.
And it's going to happen. Like, life is going to happen to you when you least expect it. I'm reading this awesome book right now called Difficult Gifts. And we're going to have this guest on the show, Courtney Burnett. And she writes in her book about suffering. And there is joy and there's suffering, and you can't have one without the other in life. And it's such a powerful message in her book. And I'm halfway through it, where it's so important to know that this suffering is going to happen to you. Like, everybody has great moments in their life and terrible moments in life. And I love what you're saying about this foundation, where we want to help you today with some easy tools, or pick what works for you to develop and tune into that when you are feeling low, and kind of develop this skill of, okay, even if I'm kind of off, this is something I can gravitate to. This is me. Knowing yourself well enough to know what those go-tos are
Yeah.
so that you can do them is going to save you in the suffering. It's going to help you so much.
Yeah, I talk a lot about right now how I'm exploring meditation, something that I never, ever did, and how I love it. And I've been forced to, because one thing I learned through my struggles and dealing with depression because of my health is that my go-to things were physical. It was moving my body, going out with friends, going out for food and drinks, and just kind of having these vices to get my mind off of it. And then when all of a sudden my leg was injured and I didn't know why, and I couldn't move, and everything I ate hurt my stomach, and I couldn't drink and eat with friends, I was like, okay, everything that I've known that makes me feel better, I can't do. What the heck do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at it now. In the time, I knew that I was low, but I think it takes getting out of it before you really realize, like, oh man, like that was a rough time.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think, like, I got through it.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful. But I had to learn different ways to get me back to feeling like me. And that took exploring and coming from it in a place of curiosity and not guilt and shame that I was feeling this way. Really digging in and questioning, like, why am I feeling off? Okay, what's one small thing I can control that's just going to help move me one step farther when it feels really, really hard, but I can do one thing. What can that one thing be?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was learning how to focus on my breath, affirmations. I couldn't control what my body was doing, but I could control my mind and what I was saying to myself. And it was hard to believe it, and it still is hard. But it's one thing that worked for me. And so if there's any tool I could offer, it would be to find things that make you feel like you in a wide scope.
Mm-hmm.
Not just movement, not just mental, but get tools from that you can grab and pull from in all different directions, whether that be social support, movement, sleep, nutrition, which is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And from our experience, we pulled in our top 5.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, what are the top 5 things that we know have helped us the most? So we want to share the top 5 here, and we want to get into the 4 pillars too. But we came up with our top 5, and we want to share that with you.
So when it comes to bouncing back, getting into your flow, number 1, journal. Feel the feels.
Oh, feel them.
You have to feel it to heal it.
Yes.
That was one of the most powerful messages that I had to learn. Write it down.
Mm-hmm. Get it out of your body.
Literally, out of your body.
Yes. Next, organize. Declutter your brain, whether you're organizing your space, whether you're organizing your schedule. Organize something so it feels less cluttered.
Declutter your space, declutter your mind. It works, I promise. Number 3, recharge with or without people. Find your support system, whether that's your close friends or whatever is going to fill up your cup, whether that be people or self-care things.
And sometimes you think you're a people person and you need alone time. And sometimes when you're in a low place, you're an introvert and you normally need to be alone and you need people. So it might not be what you always feel is your go-to in those dark moments. So just tune into what you need in order to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, number 4, move.
You better get moving.
Just move. Take advantage of those endorphins that make you feel good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be anything crazy. You don't need to run a marathon. Just move your body. Get off the couch. Get out of bed.
Yeah. One thing I love talking to clients about is exercise for a lot of people can seem very overwhelming. And so just flipping the word exercise to movement. Mm-hmm. How can I just move my body? Whether that be just sitting and stretching, you're still moving. Mm-hmm. And lastly, schedule. Find some sort of control in your schedule. Build a foundation so that in the future, you know that you have this solid core, this foundation that you can rely back on, whether that be your morning routine or your nightly routine. Something that you know your brain it's a habit.
And that you know what's coming next. So it feels like I can look forward to something. I'm in charge of my schedule. I've got this control over my life. I really am in charge, because I think when you're in that chaotic space, it feels really overwhelming. And to kind of look at your schedule and know, like, even if it's the next minute, this is what I have coming up next. This is what I'm doing. I'm in charge of it.
Yeah. Taking full ownership is huge. And then with all of these, it's being intentional is one thing that we've learned. It's having a system that works for you, and not only falling back on this system, but in each thing you're doing, being intentional about it. And why am I doing this? Is it filling me up, or is it pouring me out? Can I do this right now? Is this in my best interest? Simple things that help you build momentum when you're stuck is also really important. We say a lot, and I've heard a lot of people talk about, why is it so easy when you're in motion to stay in motion? But when you're not, to build this momentum, it seems like you're climbing Mount Everest. And so these are these simple things that you don't think that are adding up, but they really are. And they're helping you build momentum. And the number one thing that I've learned is grace. Giving yourself grace.
And that, like we said, this low moment, this need of the bouncing back to yourself, this is going to happen so many times, and it feels overwhelming in the moment. You will get out of it. You will bounce out. You will get back to you. You will find a way. And what we've decided is to kind of dive into these 4 pillars of how jumping into them and acknowledging how stress, sleep, exercise, and nutrition can really play into this bouncing back, and really easy ways within each category to do that.
Your go-to for each category. So number 1, we have stress. And our number 1 is meditation. Focusing on your breath to bring you back to the moment. You know, studies show that when you're stressed, you have increased levels of the stress hormone, cortisol. And this produces many of the harmful effects of stress, such as release of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. So when we have higher cytokines, we have higher stress. And this affects our sleep, promotes depression, anxiety, increases blood pressure, and contributes to fatigue and cloudy thinking. If you've ever felt that brain fog, this is why. So in an 8-week study, a meditation style called mindfulness meditation showed to reduce inflammation response caused by stress, decrease levels of these cytokines, which contributed to depression. Studies also show that focused attention meditation is like weightlifting for your attention span. The more you practice it, the more you have increased awareness, focus, attention. The best part is that it's free and it's accessible anywhere. Focus on your breath and become an observer of your thoughts. You can download an app. You can do square breathing, which is simply breathing in for 4, holding for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, and repeat.
YouTube is great too.
Yes.
Like, just type in focused breath meditation or 2-minute meditation. And a lot of my clients will actually do that between meetings where they're like, oh, I don't want to talk with this client. So either before or after, or maybe both, they'll just type into YouTube, have their headset on, and do a 2-minute meditation, whether it's through an app that they picked or on YouTube. And it just helps walk you through. I mean, meditation can be overwhelming to people that have never done it. So let YouTube help you out.
Yeah. And one thing I learned that is probably one of my favorite breathwork tips is if you need to wake up, to have a more powerful inhale. So that's going to stimulate you up. And if you're trying to relax, say you're having a stressful moment, anxiety attack, it's focusing on a longer exhale, breathing out and holding out longer. So if you're trying to wake up, focus on your inhale. If you're trying to relax, focus on your exhale.
Next up, exercise, which we know I love talking about. If you need to bounce back, you need energy. If you want to bounce back from anything, that's what you need. And the easiest way to do that is to just move a little bit. Like I said, get off the couch, get out of bed, just move. Literally move to the kitchen.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're moving. Take advantage of the fact that you have this free access to these endorphins in your body. And so I think thinking about the easiest way to move, like, what is that for you? If you think about, like, okay, walking's pretty easy. That doesn't overwhelm me. then that's your thing. And remember that, like, I need something to do to move. Some people like, I could do jumping jacks, which is great because it gets your heart rate up. It will release some endorphins, even if it's just for a minute.
Yeah.
It's something. And so it's another free thing that you have access to. And again, YouTube is great to get ideas for, like, there's the scientific 7-minute workout. You ever heard of that?
No.
It's so great. Like, who doesn't have 7 minutes? Sometimes that can be overwhelming too, but you could pull it up and do 1 minute of it.
Yeah.
And it's ways to get your heart rate up, ways to get the endorphins into your body. And so know that you need energy to get through a tough time. That's what's going to get you moving. That's what's going to get you going. That's what's going to get your blood flowing and give you even more ideas of how to get yourself out of it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to find that drive sometimes when you're off. So I want you to think right now, what is that for you? What is the thing? What comes to mind for you? Easiest form of exercise you could do in 1 minute.
Stretching.
Okay. Great.
Something to note is that studies show just 1 minute has positive effects. So 7 minutes might seem overwhelming. Just focus on one. I know when I was in a really dark place, I was trying to figure out my leg and not being able to move without being in excruciating pain. I didn't have an answer, which just didn't help either. But for me, walking was overwhelming. Getting out of bed was overwhelming. And something that really helped me was Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. I knew that if I moved my body, I would feel better, but it was like I was stuck. Like I couldn't. And so counting down from 5, and when I hit 1, I was just going to move. And for me, it looked like just stretching. And then from stretching, it got to be yoga because stretching was less overwhelming than yoga. And then it was yoga, and then it was walking. And now it's walking on an incline and starting to lift weights again. And it's been a slow process, but celebrating these little victories and looking back and saying, I have moved along.
Yeah. And when you're feeling like maybe you are depressed, or maybe you do have debilitating anxiety, or you have a true mental illness, or you're really struggling mentally with your mental health, studies show that exercise can treat mild to moderate depression as effectively as an antidepressant without side effects like some of the medications have. As one example, a recent study done by the Harvard Chan School of Public Health found that running for 15 minutes a day or walking for an hour reduces the risk of major depression by 26%. And so maybe it's not an hour of walking, maybe it's 10 minutes of walking or whatever it may be, that knowing that can really lower your risk of depression or get you out of this depressive state is super powerful. And lastly, I just want to say that movement builds your self-esteem. When you decide that you're going to move or you're going to commit to doing something and you do it, it builds your self-esteem. And that's what you need when you're trying to bounce back from anything. You know, people talk about the revenge body after a breakup or you decide you want to do race or something like that. And it can really build your self-esteem. You know, obviously start small, but think about, you know, what could I kind of commit to with movement that could really build me up?
Yeah. What would just be a good starting point? Because ultimately the only thing that matters is that you start, because once you start, you will build momentum. You will notice that these little bursts of movement are making you feel better, and you want to feel better. And so you're going to keep doing them. So just start.
Yes.
And if you do have an injury and that seems too overwhelming, know that there are other places you can start, like breath work, also nutrition. One of the biggest ones is focusing on your water intake. Studies show that by just upping your water intake, it boosts your mood, your energy. Drinking water has been shown to help activate your metabolism.
Now I'm thirsty.
And a boost in metabolism has been associated with a positive impact on energy levels. And dehydration may result in fatigue and confusion as well as anxiety. So if you are really tired, if you are struggling mentally, I would encourage you to focus on drinking some more water. It's free. It's going to make you feel good, and it's going to force you to pee, and therefore it's going to force you to move.
Also, some people hate water, but I see what you put in Big Magic today.
some lemons.
Yeah, it's such a good idea.
I have been noticing that my stomach has been a little off, more than usual, as well as fatigue. And I was like, what? I got intentional and reflected on it. And I said, what have I been doing differently? I haven't seen Big Magic in a few weeks. So now she's here. But if you're wondering how much to drink, my goal is to try and do a gallon. But I also didn't start there. I worked up to it. And so some people say a good rule of thumb is taking your body weight and dividing it in half, and that's how many ounces. Some people try and do 50. Some people try and do 100. According to the National Academics of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, they recommend that for males, it's about 125 ounces each day, and for women, it's about 91 ounces. So just start trying to drink 8 glasses a day, 8 ounces each, I think is a really good starting point.
Yeah, love that. And lastly, for our fourth pillar is sleep. And sleep is just crucial. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm back from this trip and both my husband and I are moody. We are organizing our house, getting back into the groove, and huge time change with the time zones. And we're irritable. And it's just so important when you're thinking about after having a baby or going through something big emotionally, or if you do have a lot of anxiety, it depletes you. Yeah. You need sleep to be able to bounce back. And according to the Sleep Foundation, it's estimated that over 300 million people worldwide have depression, which is huge. That's so many people. I just feel for you. And around 75% of depressed people show symptoms of insomnia. Mm-hmm. And so there's this issue that's going on if you have mental health issues, it affects your sleep. It affects your ability to sleep. But also, the best way to battle mental health issues is to get sleep. And so it's this vicious cycle. And it's just hard to fall asleep when you have these worries and burdens on you, but it's crucial. And so just address it. You know, what in my sleep patterns can I work on? Maybe it's just thinking about what time do I want to aim to get to bed tonight? Yeah. Start there. And then think about, okay, if I'm going to start there, what do I got to do? You know, an hour prior, 30 minutes prior, dim the house, get a, relaxing environment. What relaxes you? Everybody's different. Do the thing that kind of gets you into that space. Think about that wake up time. When do I want to wake up? How can I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep with that window? And just start thinking about it. Like, make it a priority, because the more sleep you have, the more you're going to be able to cope with your stressors, with what you're feeling, with all of these worries you're feeling, and how you want to bounce back, how you want to strategize. You need sleep in your tank.
Mm-hmm. And if you're listening right now and you're thinking, yep, this is me, I need to do something with my sleep, I would encourage you to go back and listen to episode 17, where we have on Dr. Danielle Ron, and she takes a deep dive into sleep with so many really, really great tips that you can easily implement to help.
Mm-hmm. And last thing I want to say about sleep is, if you feel like I just can't grasp this sleep thing, I cannot get it under control, talk to your physician. Mm-hmm. Sleep is crucial for your health, your physical health, your mental health, your relationships. You need some sleep.
Yeah. I would say it's probably your number one thing to focus on out of all the tips we've given today, is recharge that battery by getting some good quality sleep.
Mm-hmm. And just to recap, we want to go over our top 5 again, because I think you can take tips from each of these 4 pillars. You can listen to our story, but in general, these top 5 things are game changers. So again, number 1, journal, get your feelings out.
Number 2, organize, declutter your brain.
Number 3, recharge with your support system, might be with or without people.
Number 4, get your body moving.
And lastly, number 5, schedule. Get in control of something in that schedule.
Love it. Before we jump into our 3 gold stars, please don't forget to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and share Ivy Unleashed with anyone looking to up-level their life. You can find Gold Ivy Health Co. on all social channels. Get exclusive tips when you join the Ivy League for access to our weekly blog and newsletter. And if you're looking for even more inspiration, check out our website, goldivyhealthco.com, and find behind-the-scenes footage of this episode on YouTube.
Yes, now it's time for our 3 gold stars.
Number 1, take time to journal and reflect on the biggest emotion you're experiencing right now to unleash it out of you.
2, schedule in one form of self-care that doesn't feel overwhelming, like a 10-minute walk, bath, call a friend, something like that.
And number 3, declutter one aspect of your life, whether that be your room, your schedule, your desk, or even just a drawer.
All right, up next, Unleashing Ivy. Brooke, what's one thing you do to help get yourself back into a flow state?
Definitely my early morning routine. So I know that if I wake up and the first thing I do is journal, meditate, and work out, it's going to set my tone for the whole day.
Same.
All right. And when you are really struggling with bouncing back, what's one thing that steers you in a positive direction?
Justin, my person. And sometimes it's not Justin. Sometimes it's somebody else, depending on what the thing is. But,
Right.
you know, I just recently had super overwhelmingly big feelings about technology not working. And we need technology in our business. And things were just going wrong left and right. And it sounds like a trivial thing, but this business means so much to me, and I don't want to ever let you down or our listeners down. And we didn't even know if we were going to be able to get an episode out this past Monday, and it was killing me inside. And I was just feeling so overwhelmed. And I was just like, I just need Justin. I just need to look at him and have him help me take a breath and have him help me figure out what is the next right move. I don't even know. I felt so overwhelmed. And so I would say think of that person who is that for you and let them carry a burden or let them help you in whatever way you need.
Yeah.
And sometimes they know more than you do, because sometimes you just can't even think of what can I even do next to keep myself alive, breathing, moving, less stressed.
And if your person is the one that's really struggling right now, I would encourage you to ask the simple question of, what can I carry for you today? What burden, what stress, how can I help? Just letting them simply know you're there. It means way more than we'll ever know.
Right. All right. And last question. What's one thing you wish you would have known sooner about how to get back to feeling like yourself?
I would say the importance of having a foundation to fall back on, and then also giving yourself grace when life happens, because you can't have one without the other.
And for our last segment today, your piece of gold.
This week's piece of gold comes from Gabrielle Bernstein. She says, in any moment, no matter how far down the negative path of fear you've gone, you can choose again. You can always choose again.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.